it's fine now. It's on now. Right there, power. So it's already on. The blue light's on.
Oh, I see.
There you go.
Yeah.
That one's a little bit better. All right, hi. All right, everyone, I guess we're going to get started. I'm just going to make a few announcements before we introduce our speaker tonight. So, as always, I always want to thank the Springfield First Christian Church for letting us use their space for free. So, let's thank them. Is anybody here for the first time? Brand new? All right, several. Okay, well, there's bathrooms in the back on the left. I don't know if you saw the lending library back there. We also have flyer or the handouts, the lifestyle medicine handouts. And one other thing I wanted to mention in the back there was, if you guys have already gotten the schedule for a class, there was a one error on there. We swapped a date. So next week is the cooking demonstration, and then the week after that it did say heart disease, but that's going to be diabetes. And then the week after that is going to be heart disease. So those were swapped on the original class schedule that was out there week 1 and week 2. The correct one is back there now, so if you want to pick one up, you can. But also, the class schedule is also on the website at the bottom, and also the class flyer, a PDF form of that class flyer is also on the homepage of the website, so you can just look at it. If you don't want to keep track of paper, that's an option. So that, and then I also want to mention is anybody, if you've been checking out books in the lending library, you can keep them for about a month or so. But I guess we have even though there's a lot of books back there, we have a lot that are checked out right now. And so we're going to start calling people. So if if you have a book that you've had more than a month, or know somebody else that has, and this is also for the people that are online, because I'm speaking to them through the microphone, and then I'm trying to just talk loud for all of you in here. So those that are new, that's the purpose of the microphone. Is we also have people on Zoom online that are attending. And so for them, if they have any of the online people have any of the books checked out, try to remember to bring them back in so other people can check those out. And I think that was all do you have any announcements before we introduce Pam?
Yeah, so I just wanted to mention that tomorrow I'm having a class from 3 to 4 here in Springfield at Northwest Medical Home. But if you're interested, it's on how what we eat affects the earth, our environment. And so that's kind of a 3 to 4:30 class. We do that every Wednesday. Some people like an afternoon kind of class. Scott this week, he did a wonderful session at Campbell Community Center on what he did here last week on calorie density, and there were a number of people who attended. And then on Thursday, there's a Zoom class from 4 to 5 o'clock for people who like to do that. So we're doing several classes a week for the new people here because some classes work better for others. But the point, one thing that I wanted to mention, I got so excited this week, I was jumping up and down. What was I jumping up and down about? 76-year-old dinosaur doctor. So what I was jumping up and down about is a note that my daughter sent to me. She's an ER physician, Minneapolis, Minnesota, and I've been kind of trying to convince her about the importance of stop treating just the symptoms, stop treating another pill for every ill, to treat the root cause, the food that people are eating and how they're moving throughout the day and how they deal with stress, which you're going to be dealing with today a bit, and social connection you'll be dealing with, and potentially sleep at some point, and chemicals. So finally, she sent me this clip of a new medical school, and I had resigned from a medical school a year ago from Lebanon because they would not incorporate lifestyle medicine, what we've been teaching here. And in this new medical school in Arkansas with a class of 48, just started this year, They now are promoting preventive medicine and treating symptoms as opposed to the symptoms. So I was so thrilled. I sent them that we'd be willing to do a class once a week for their students. I haven't heard back yet, but we'll see how that goes. I just wanted to share the story with you.
Thought I'd introduce myself. My name's Pam Birrell, and I am a PhD psychologist. And I taught at the university for a number of years, and I was a psychotherapist in private practice for a number of years. About 10 years ago, I retired from the university, and then 2 years ago, I retired from my private practice, and I started working at a farm sanctuary. So I was going to begin by telling you my story. I was telling my new friend Heather the other day about how I became vegan. Here's how it happened to me 15 or 16 years ago. I had always, does anybody here remember the Moosewood cookbook? Yeah, so when I was in the 60s and 70s, I just was going to be a vegetarian and all of that stuff, and I did pretty well. And then I decided at one point that this was way before carnivore or paleo diet. I thought I was pretty smart. The way people ate when they were, you know, what ancient people, prehistoric people did, is that they usually ate nuts and berries, but occasionally they killed a mammoth. And so my husband and I ate mostly vegetarian, and then when we wanted to kill a mammoth, we went out for prime rib. And what we noticed is the prime ribs came farther and farther apart. And so we were headed in that direction anyway. And then my friend Sarah went on a raw diet. And I thought that was the stupidest thing I'd ever heard. How could you possibly be on a raw diet? But she was really thriving on it, and she gave me a bit of a challenge to do it. And one January, I woke up and I thought, made my very first smoothie, because back then nobody talked about smoothies. There was one Russian woman, actually I saw her book at the library the other day, that wrote a book about green smoothies. So I thought, okay. And I was raw for about 10 months. And I remember that spring, this was in January, that spring, I couldn't figure out, I wanted asparagus, but you kind of have to cook asparagus, but no, I stuck with it. And then I realized, you want to try this one? Then I realized at the end of that 10 months, hey, I'm vegan. I'd always kind of wanted to be vegan, so I just sort of fell into it. So I'm an accidental vegan, and I have never looked back. I am what they call these days high raw, and so most of the day is raw food, and then I might have, I might have something cooked. I'm not much of a cook, although I'm going to share with you some goodies that I made today. So that's how I got started. And then as I said, when I retired from my private practice, what do you do when you're retired? You know, I, like most retired people, was sort of at a loss for a while. I knew I wanted to volunteer. I had been contributing to the National Farm Sanctuary for years, and so I thought, okay, I wonder if there's any farm sanctuaries. So I looked online, and I came up with Welcome Home Farm Sanctuary. Debbie, can you show the next slide? No, wait. That is Buster. He's a small steer. Yeah. No, wait, Debbie, not yet, because I don't know what the next slide is. And so I called them up and I said, can I come see the animals? And yes, that day, another woman came down to see the animal, and what she wanted for her 70th birthday was to hug a cow. So we went down and we hugged cows and we scratched pigs' bellies, and I said, I want to volunteer here. And so my volunteer job as a PhD psychologist is shoveling shit at a farm sanctuary. And I absolutely adore it. And you'll see a bunch of animals. So, okay, now Debbie, the next one. Okay, and this is the farm sanctuary. This is Welcome Home Farm Sanctuary. It's from here, it's probably 20 minutes. It's about a mile outside of Cresswell, a mile west of Cresswell. And at the bottom right is the picture of the farm, and then this is their sign. And if you want to go visit during the summer, they have what are called welcome walks. And so you can go to their website and look up welcome walks and buy a ticket. And I'll be there to show you all the animals. They're my favorites. So, okay, next one.
Move over a little, Pam, so people can see you on Zoom. Move your body.
Oh, you want me in the middle?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I forgot about that. Okay, and this is what I am doing as the psychologist in the group. I'm going to talk tonight about rest, resilience, and relationships, which are 3 pillars of lifestyle medicine. So sleep first, very important, stress, and then connection, not only to others, not only social connection, but connection to others, self, and to a bigger spirit. So next one. So here are the 6 pillars, and I always tease Scott and Charlie that they leave the PhD to do half of them. And these, the way I'm looking at lifestyle medicine now is that there's none of them is more important than the other. They all have to work together. If you're eating, well, first of all, if you're eating a good plant-based diet, you're probably sleeping better. But if you're eating a fairly good plant-based diet, but went out and partying every night and not getting in sleep, it's not going to work. So all 6 of these really need to work together. Okay, next one. Wonder what the next one is. Okay, this is me and Fred. Fred's my favorite goat at the farm, and I found this great quote: "The most effective medicine isn't found in a bottle. It's built into our daily lives," which is really the whole point of lifestyle medicine. It's not taking a pill. It's really being built into our lives. And that's Fred that I'm holding, and Fred came to the farm with a couple of broken legs. And so he kind of walks funny, and he has to take anti-inflammatories. He's adorable. You'll see, he's the friendly goat. And then the little goat over on the other side is named, great name, Zelda. And Zelda's the old lady of the farm, but we have problems with her because she knows how to escape. And there's an apple tree across the road, so we have to watch Zelda. Okay, next one. Okay, so this is where I'm beginning. These are not any of the 3 I'm talking about. But when we talk about, I need the basis of any meaningful and lasting change in our life has to be based on really strong and good self-care and a basis of mindfulness. I'm going to begin by talking about these. Nothing can happen after this. And so I'm going to talk about what do I mean by mindfulness, and we'll do a couple little things about it, and talk about self-care. And I really like the little picture down in the side that when you go for a nature walk, which are you? Is your mind wandering, or are you actually enjoying nature? Okay, Debbie, next one. Okay, what is mindfulness? Because people will say this, I'm never going to meditate. Is meditation mindfulness? Meditation is a kind of mindfulness. But being mindful, I talk about, how often have you driven to Salem and not noticed Albany? Especially if you do the drive a lot. You're not being mindful. I used to do the drive a lot because when I was early in my career, I worked in the state hospital, and I would drive up there. And I had a rule that I needed to notice every mile sign along the ways. And it's very difficult to be mindful that long. Being mindful is really being present to this moment and not going off in your mind. Our minds, I told my yoga class, I'm also a yoga teacher, and I told my yoga class the other day that the mind's like a puppy. And so you're sitting here, and you're thinking, well, this is an interesting or boring lecture, and then you start thinking, oh, wait a minute, I forgot to go to the grocery store, and blah, 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 and pretty soon you're not even here, right? So the mindfulness is just bringing the mind back. And both meditation and mindfulness reduces blood pressure and cortisol levels. We know that there's much good research looking at mindfulness. There's a thing called MBSR, mindfulness-based stress reduction. So if you want to look that up on the internet, it controls anxiety, it improves depression, lengthens your attention span, improves sleep, and increases the gray matter in our brain. We have both gray matter and white matter in our brain. And the gray matter is the thinking part of our brain. And long-term meditators develop more gray matter. And also, I don't have it up here, but it also develops the centers for compassion in the brain. And it shrinks the amygdala, which is the alarm center of the brain. And I have this study up here. I found this really interesting study that is called "A Wandering Mind is an Unhappy Mind." And this was a really, really interesting study. They took a bunch of people and had them put an app on their phone. Okay, and they said, when we contact you, we want to know what you're doing, what you're thinking, and how you feel. Okay, are you thinking about what you're doing, or are you thinking about something else? And the results were really striking. They found out that most people aren't thinking about what they're doing. They're thinking about something else, except for one exception, when they're making love. That one kind of seems to take away the thought. And what they found out is that it didn't matter whether you were thinking happy or unhappy thoughts. If you were thinking about something other than what you were doing, you always rated less happy. And so the more you can kind of keep your mind in the present, and sometimes that can be hard, then you're happier. And I mean, I thought that was surprising, because even if people said, I was thinking really pleasant thoughts, they rated lower in happiness than those who were just in the moment and with the flow of the moment. So next one, Debbie. What? Oh, mindfulness-based stress reduction, MBSR. Yeah.
They actually have a class at the YMCA for the MBSR.
There you go. Okay. Okay, what's the next one? Okay, so here's some examples that I have of mindfulness. So one thing is just paying attention to the present moment without judgment, observing thoughts, feelings, and sensations. And the best way to do this is just connect with the breath. So if you just take a moment now, what's your breath? Don't try to change it. Don't try to judge it. Yeah, okay. What about, where do you notice cool air coming in your nostrils? And maybe it's warmer when it goes out? Mm-hmm. Maybe do you notice the rise of the chest at all? There's no right or wrong. Do you notice any movement of the rib cage? Sometimes the belly with real deep breaths. And so that's just coming. The breath is just the best way. If you're ever having a panic attack, settle right into the breath. And that brings you into the moment. And it quietens everything, and it lowers your blood pressure. You could do a body scan. So I used to do this a lot with relaxation techniques and things like that. Pay attention for a moment to your feet. Now, I'm not going to tell you to relax your feet. Just pay attention. Just bring your awareness to your feet and to your ankles and to your shins and calves and your knees and your upper legs, quadriceps. Notice your butt on the chair and your back against the chair. And maybe you notice now the movement of your rib cage as you're breathing in. Maybe you begin to pay attention to the tops of your shoulders and the cervical spine at the back of your neck and the forehead and the scalp, the eyes and the jaw. There you go. You've just meditated. That's it. So if you're upset, or actually it's a good practice to do when you're trying to go to sleep, and I'll get to sleep later. Gentle yoga. Yoga teacher, I love yoga. In fact, there was an interesting study just done, and I'll talk about that in steep, that yoga Tai Chi and walking were the best exercises for improving sleep. And I'm not talking about putting your head on your knees, okay? I'm talking about standing up straight, becoming aware of how you stand, and lifting your arms up. And then down, very mindfully. So I teach very gentle yoga classes. I teach older adults usually. A sitting meditation, now that's meditating. I sit down and I meditate 20 to 40 minutes every morning. I just have this schedule. I get up. Now, my Zen teacher might not like this, but I get up, make a cup of coffee, and go in to meditate. Drink my coffee while I'm meditating. I've told Sato that. She's okay with it. And I just sit. And I watch thoughts come up, and I get caught up in my thoughts, my puppy mind. Right? It's still there. I haven't vanquished it, nor do I want to vanquish it. I just want to be able to follow it and gently bring it back. Okay, I'm thinking about what I'm going to have for lunch. Come back to the breath. Thinking about this damn talk. Come back to the breath. And find that it can be a really deeply relaxing time. So that's what I do every morning. And then just mindful movements like walking, stretching, and integrating that. Going for a walk, and I'll talk more about this later too, where you just walk. That's all. Just walk. And I've heard this beautiful story one time about a man and his daughter, and every night he would say to his daughter, "What did you notice today?" And so just go out on a walk and notice. You know, it might be the dead squirrel in the road, or it might be the beautiful leaf that you see. So those are examples of that. Okay, Debbie, next one. Okay, so this is an example. This is me and Milo. Milo is the brother to Romeo, who you'll see in a bit, and Milo is the second world. Romeo is in the Guinness Book of Records. He is the world's tallest steer. We had him measured and everything, but But Milo is his brother, and and he's big, but you haven't seen Romeo yet. You'll see. Yeah, and so one good idea is to connect with your breath and breathe in, like to a count of 4, and breathe out to a count of 6. And if you're upset about something, trying to go to sleep, breathe in 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And what we find with this kind of breath is it activates the parasympathetic nervous system. So it activates that relaxation response. Again, when you're trying to go to sleep, it's a way. I got a bunch of sleep tips that are kind of funny, but just to take this breath and take this moment. That was a really nice moment with Milo. He's a sweetie. Okay, next one. Okay, self-care. For women, especially, this is really hard. We're supposed to take care of other people, right? We've got to always be taking care of other people, and it's hard to get over that old training, that old reflex, really. So first thing is pay attention. Pay attention to how you spend your time and how you talk to yourself. How do you talk to yourself? Have you ever said to yourself, boy, that was stupid? Yeah. Maybe I have the example that a couple of years ago I woke up in the middle of the night and this thought came into mind, you're just a useless old woman. I bet some of you had thoughts like that. I actually laughed because that was the most, what? And when I was seeing clients, especially, I would say, would you say that to anyone else in the world? Would you walk up to somebody and say you're just a useless old woman? No, so don't say it to yourself. Now, don't fight that voice, because fighting it will give it strength, but it might come in and say, you're really a loser. And you might say, well, that's an interesting opinion. Okay? We often have this inner critic, and that inner critic can be especially brutal if we've had abusive or verbally abusive childhoods, because we take in those voices from our parents, from our families, from the world around us. But we've all got it. It's called the inner critic. I've got it. And I had a client once. She was great. She named her inner critic Joan because she didn't like the name Joan. And so she'd come in and she'd be saying it was kind of a bad week. And I said, well, what was Joan saying about it? And she would tell me what Joan said. And we could discuss whether or not she actually agreed with what Joan said. And we decided Joan was kind of trying to protect her because, you know, if you're going to jump out and do something new, your critic might say, well, you really can't do that. You know, be careful. But over time, it's like, oh, there she is again. There's Joan. And so you might think about finding a bad name for your inner critic. Okay, so once we get to that point, how do we do self-care? And so the first one is setting boundaries and moving past guilt. It is saying no. Now again, for most of us women, it's like you got to help everybody. But remember on the airplane, put on your own oxygen mask first, right? If you're going out and becoming a martyr and coming home real, you know, just awful and your health's bad, how can you take care of anyone else? So setting boundaries, saying meaningful no's to people. And going back to that inner critic, treating yourself with some compassion. Hey, you know, you did pretty good today. And not constantly, I know I will go home after this talk and I will think, okay, I should have done this, I should have done this, I should have done this. And I will say, okay, that might be useful for the next time. I'll take that into consideration for the next time. But I think I did pretty good. Okay, so, and then this brings you closer to yourself and your own set of values. So some people might be asking you to do things that you're not really comfortable with doing, but you got to kind of take care of them. But what are your values? And so we're going to get to that more when we talk about connection to self. And then it helps you claim your own power. You can say, no, I'm not going to do that. So, and so taking a long bath could be good self-care or not. Are you taking a long bath because, oh, it would really feel good to me? Or are you taking it because, oh, I think I should? Okay, no shoulds. I had a couple of rules with my clients. I said, you cannot say the word but. So I would go to the mall, but I'm afraid I'd have a panic attack. No, you can say I would go to the mall and I might have a panic attack, but you can't put the but in the sentence. And you also can't say should. And it's really interesting when you just let yourself let go of those two words, how it changes your inner world. Okay, next. Okay, we're going to talk about sleep, and I had to have these pictures up here. On the left, we have pickles and bread and Tansy. Tansy has since this picture, Tansy died of heart failure. One of the things that the animals in the farm die of old age. They're never mistreated. And then on the left, on the right, that's me and Pickles. And Pickles, pigs love to have their bellies rubbed. You can walk up to a pig that's standing up and reach under and do this on the belly. They'll just flop over. They're very cute. And Pickles, you'll see another picture of him. Pickles does tricks. Pigs are very smart. Pickles learns to sit. These animals are really smart. They're really loving. So this is, I love them. Okay, next one. Okay, so this is just a slide showing the effects of sleep deprivation. Okay, so we have cognitive impairment if you're not getting enough sleep, memory loss, impaired moral judgment, severe yawning, yeah, hallucinations. When I was in college, I was taking a physics course, and I decided I was, 18, 19, something like that, that we're having this course, that we're going to have a test on diffraction gratings. So I pulled an all-nighter. And the next day, I saw diffraction gratings all around me. And that was the last time I ever pulled an all-nighter. It's like, I don't care. Loss of focus. That's the symptoms similar to ADHD. Poor immune system function, risk of type 2 diabetes. We also know that, Question? Oh, sorry. I will get to that. Yeah, absolutely get to that. We also know that people who sleep less weigh more. So a good way to deal with overweight is to get enough sleep, irregular heart rate, risk of heart disease, aches, tremors, decreased temperature, and then the risk of obesity. So get enough sleep. Next one. Okay, so how much do we need? We need 7 to 9 hours. Now, people are really different. There's the occasional person that's a real outlier, and no matter what they do, they only need 4 hours of sleep. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes, you are. And I'll get to that with stages of sleep. You're going to want that in one fell swoop. Yeah. Okay. And it's good quality sleep. We do know that if you drink wine or alcohol before you go to bed, you'll go to sleep better, but then you wake up later and the quality of your sleep is not good. So don't do that. That's a risky substance. You don't want to play with that. And then the next one is I'll show the stages of sleep. Okay, so in stage 1, you start out non-REM sleep. Your body starts to relax, the brain waves slow, and then you go to the second one, non-REM sleep. You begin to relax more, breathing and heart rate slow, and then you go to stage 3, which is really the deepest sleep. And you should spend about an hour or so in that deep sleep. And then we have REM sleep, which is the funnest part. That's where you dream. We did these studies years ago. They bring people into a sleep laboratory, and they'd sleep. And then whenever their eyelids fluttered, they wake them up and say, "Were you dreaming?" Yeah, they were dreaming. So that's the dream state. And sometimes my psychology professor comes out, and she wants to tell you about interesting facts about REM sleep. When you're dreaming, your brain is wired in such a way that you are paralyzed. This is so you won't act your dreams out. There are certain conditions where you're not paralyzed when you're dreaming, and there was one person I knew of, he had to have himself closed up in a sleeping bag every night to keep, he went through plate glass windows and things like that because he was acting out his dreams. So if you ever had a dream where you just couldn't move, right, you can't. The dream is picking up on that. And I did a whole course on dreams. So the next one. Okay, so the next one shows what happens. This looks pretty much like my sleep schedule. So toward the beginning of the night, you go into the deep sleep. And then as the night goes on, you go up and the dreaming periods get longer. I'll talk about this more later, but I've talked about my Aura ring, which I dearly love. You got one too, all right. And it'll show me my sleep. It'll show me a chart just like this, if I'm lucky. And so you're going to go through these stages every night. So if you're breaking up your sleep, you're not getting them. Yeah. It does, yeah. Sleep is really super important. So self-care, compassion, set those boundaries. Yeah, there you go. Okay. Yeah, okay, the next one. Okay, so here's how to get good sleep. And these you've probably heard before. First of all, be mindful, take care of yourself. You have to give your mind, your little puppy mind, the message that it's safe and it's time for bed. And if you're up running around until 10 o'clock at night and then try to fall into bed, you are not going to sleep. And you see this all over the place. A good sleep hygiene, so that you start to wind down, you turn your screens off. I like to take a shower at night, so my cat has learned exactly how to do this. We go in and we take a shower. He doesn't, he watches me. He worries about, cats worry that you're drowning when you're in the shower. At least Benjamin does. So, and then read for a while and just make the room dark, all of this stuff. Avoid the screens, read or meditate. Make your room just really inviting and dark and relaxing. and then establish a schedule that fits your lifestyle. And for some workers, if you're a shift worker, you're going to have to do something a little different, and that's a whole different ball of wax. Maybe my ring tells me I'm an early morning chronotype, which means that I want to be in bed by 9. And I always complain about these meetings. It keeps me up past my bedtime often. And my sleep schedule is pretty much 9 to 5. And you want to establish, just maybe yours is 10 to 6. I have a friend whose sleep schedule has always been 7 p.m. to 3 a.m. I don't know how she did it, but she raised 3 kids on that schedule. So you'll find it. And that seems to be, the circadian rhythm seems to be a very individual thing, although it changes over a lifetime. Like I used to be, when I was in college, I liked to go to bed at 3 and sleep until 11, 3 in the morning. And that worked well for me. So that will change, but you just be really gentle with yourself and find out what that works for you. And it helps that if you're, during the day, you've managed stress and you've gotten some time outside, you've gotten some exercise, you've done maybe a little bit of gentle yoga. I have a handout I'm going to give you later about Pam's vegan hacks. And I love YouTube. That's the only social media I'm on. And you can find nice, gentle yoga classes on YouTube. So just look up go to YouTube and press search and find a gentle yoga class or a chair yoga class and just follow along with it. And then, maybe a gentle walking. They found that it's easier to adjust to jet lag if you're out walking in the early morning or right before when it becomes twilight. Helps adjust that inner circadian rhythm. So, okay, next one. And eat a whole food plant-based diet, for Pete's sake. What they found, and this is one pretty recent study, is that people who eat whole food plant-based diet get better sleep quality, it's less fragmented, and more duration. So the study showed that people on plant-based diet slept up to 48 minutes more a night, so maybe an hour a night. And I know when I talk about my vegan hacks right now, that if I'm being really good, and I'm not always really good, but if I'm having my green smoothie every day, my sleep is just fine. If I start doing something weird, or I have to go out to dinner, or I'm eating a little bit later than I usually do, then it really affects my sleep. So, and establish that chronotype. Just maybe you have a weird one, like my friend Jennifer. Okay, any questions on that? I'm babbling on. I do have something, yeah, yeah. Okay, next one. Okay, here's, I found these suggestions in the New York Times. I thought they were really cute. So they didn't say this, but I made it up. So bore yourself, right? You're trying to go to sleep, and so you read a nutrition label. Maybe you got something next to you. A TV show that you've watched many times in the background. I think that's a great one. Or maybe on YouTube there's some lectures by sort of boring spiritual teachers, like Jack Kornfield. I really like his lectures, but they put me to sleep. And so I'll put on that. Maybe picture a familiar place. This is to keep, because your mind's going to be, I don't want to go to sleep yet. Your mind's going crazy. So, no, I'm going to picture my bedroom. Keep my eyes closed, but I'm going to picture the bedroom and try to just, make sure that I know where everything is and just picture that in my head. That's pretty boring. Count back from 100. That's the opposite of counting sheep. You can do that too, but counting back. White noise, or when I was in practice, I got one of those white noise machines. You know how psychologists do that. And this particular machine, and it wasn't a very expensive one, had gray noise and pink noise on it too. Yeah, and I really liked the gray noise, actually. And it was maybe $10 at Bed Bath & Beyond. So listen to nature sounds. Those are pretty, or a familiar audiobook or a bedtime story. There's a channel on YouTube that's called Get Sleepy. And he's wonderful. He comes, this is Get Sleepy, the place where we relax, breathe, and get sleepy. I'm usually asleep by then. And many of his stories I have not heard through to the end because it's this very boring voice, and he's talking about a woman at running a bakery. It's really boring. And so I like that one too. And then you can do things. You sleep better if your room is cool. So I have, especially in the summer, I have a fan on every night. I like to put a cold washcloth on your head, drink a glass of water, and do kind of this progressive muscle relaxation, what I was talking about before, relaxing the spine and the neck and the jaw. We've all got those places where we hold. Any questions on that? Yeah. Rain Brain? Okay. Yeah. That's a good suggestion. There are many apps now. Rain Brain, Headspace. I have an app that I use. It's a meditation timer. It's called Insight Timer. And a lot of these places will have background music that can help lull you to sleep. Just make sure that they don't get loud birds after about 30 minutes. Okay. Any other suggestions? Yes. Sure. Oh, Calm. Yes, there's an app called Calm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I tend to, I don't know, I only use an Insight Timer. Okay, the next one. Stress. Okay. Let's get off of sleep. Any questions on sleep? Yeah, that's binaural sounds, yeah. Okay, the question is about binaural sounds through headphones that are supposed to train your brain to go to deeper states like alpha and delta states. The research on that is mixed. I find it not very helpful, but there are people who swear by it. So, and there's what is that app called? It is called Moongate. And Moongate has a bunch of those binaural sounds on it. You need to use headphones otherwise. Yeah. Any other? Oh, yes, and magnesium can help, although just magnesium glycinate or something like that. Yeah. It used to work for me, and then all of a sudden I started getting paradoxical reaction to it, and it kept me awake. So I don't know. But magnesium, you can get drinks, magnesium drinks, although they often have sugar in them. So magnesium pill is probably easier if you're really having trouble. It can help relax. With your mouth? Oh, yeah. You got to be careful with too much magnesium. Yeah. Is what? Right before bed. Yes, the magnesium is a half hour or so before bed. Also, I probably shouldn't say this, occasionally I use a CBD gummy. CBD, yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, what I find for me is I'm generally, sleeping is one of my superpowers. But if I'm sick, that's when I use it. Like I had the flu so badly. And you know when you're really, really sick, you can't sleep? Worked great. So, but it's not a thing to use every night. And it probably, I haven't looked at the research, but it probably also interferes with sleep quality. So but in desperation. Okay. Stress. So we're going to talk about what stress is and how to manage your own stress levels. Next one, Debbie. I've talked about this before, that there are two kinds of stress. There's distress and eustress. Distress is something like, I had a car accident on the way home. Or I have a big exam coming up, and I know, like when I took the psychology licensing exam, I was scared shitless that I wasn't going to pass it. So that kind of stress, although that one I probably could have transformed. Or you have to work too many hours, or you have a boss that's mean. This is distressing, and that's something to manage. But the other kind of stress is called eustress. And it can actually motivate you and energize you. So I always use the example. When I give these talks here, it is stressful. I have to work. I have to reorganize it. It's like, that didn't work last time. I'm going to try something new. I want to look new stuff up, all of this stuff. And it's stressful, but it's eustress because it kind of pulls me in to focus, to organizing, to helping my brain work better. But it's stress. And I use a violin there because if a violin string is too tight, it screeches, right? If it's too loose, it doesn't play music. So we want to just have that string tight enough and to pay attention to it. Again, this is that self-compassion. It's just you're right at that sweet spot where you're not overstressed, you're not a blob, but you find that spot where you can really make good music. Okay, the next one. So these are just examples, like prolonged work. I don't know if I need to do this one. But it's an example, especially of the eustress. So a tough workout is stressful. Getting married is stressful, right? Especially a big wedding, starting a new job, traveling, all of that is stressful. That's eustress. And so, next one. Okay, so how to transform your stress response. First of all, you can transform stress into a challenge. So instead of thinking this is a problem, think it's something to work on, right? So I could say to myself, as I did today, that, this is too stressful, I don't like to do this. Or I could say, this is a real challenge. It helps me rise to it. You got to be careful because some of the stresses might be too much to rise to and they would be distress. So, and then you've got to do something different, but you can, Gianna, and you can embrace anxiety. I always tell my clients, they say, I'm anxious about going on this trip. And I would say, is it anxiety or is it excitement? And so I pay attention to that the nervous system, just your whole sensations, can't tell the difference between anxiety and excitement, right? If you're on one of those big, what do you call those things that go up and down? Witchies? Roller coaster. Yeah. That's stressful, right? You're feeling a lot of fear, but if you're that kind of person, you're excited, right? It's exhilarating. So it's just how are you framing it? So it really important here is to just be able to sometimes, and you can't always. Sometimes things, a death of someone or that. I'm not talking about reframing that. But this kind of stress, this everyday stress that goes on in our lives. I have too many things to do today. You can turn that into distress. You can say, I have too many things to do today. This is just awful. How am I going to get through this day? It's really terrible. How are you going to feel? Versus, I have a lot of things to do today. Let me see if I can rise to this challenge and how I might organize things. You see the difference? And so that's a really good way to begin to manage it. And then be mindful. Coming back to this. Instead of because our brains, our little puppy brains, sometimes they're called monkey brains, will say, this is terrible, I've got too many things to do, and your mind's just going off like that. But if you're mindful, come back. What am I thinking? Follow the breath, maybe write in the journal, decide to be grateful. There's a lot of research on gratefulness. I could do a whole lecture on being grateful and how that changes our whole inner landscape. Or just go for a walk. And one of the nice things about stress, yeah, how about that? One of the nice things about stress is it often leads us to reaching out to others and creating a community. And so when I was stressed and feeling lonely after retired, I need to do something. I need to go find something to do, or call a friend. So does anybody else have any other ideas about stress? Yeah, Laura. Right, so sometimes when you feel this sense of urgency, I've got to hurry, nope, I'm just going to walk slowly. In Zen, we do something called Kinyin, which is a very slow walk. So it's like this. and it's very calming. You just take your foot, you inhale with your foot up, and exhale, put your foot down, just a half a foot. Inhale, lift the other one. Exhale, put it down. Inhale up, exhale down, and pretty soon you're just right where you need to be. Any other suggestions? Chew gum? Oh, okay. Okay. Hurts my jaw to think about it. Okay. Anybody else? Yeah.
My family, my son and daughter and myself send 3 gratefuls every day. Send by a text. 3
Oh.
gratefuls to each other every day.
Yeah, so it's just being grateful to each other every day.
You
Yeah.
have to stop and think.
You do. Uh-huh. It's just sort of like, what did you notice every day? It's like, what am I grateful for today? And that's often a good just practice to every night if you're writing in a journal or when you're trying to go to sleep. Maybe that's something to add to our boring one. Is like, what am I grateful for today? And don't let your mind go into our minds. I always tell my clients that an unsupervised mind is a dangerous place to be. You don't want to get lost in it. You want to bring it back. Okay, so next one. Okay, this is me and Fred. Last summer, Fred, we were afraid Fred had cancer. And so one day I sat down and I just told him it was so sweet. He's the best goat in the world. Turned out he had an infection. He didn't have cancer, so Fred is still being a nuisance at the farm. Sometimes at the welcome walks, we have to put him away because when we have the welcome walks, we sell these little cups of fruit, and Fred will steal them, so we have to put him away. Okay, the next one. Okay, and eating a plant-based diet. This is the one I have a handout about. Let's see if I can find it. Charlie or Scott, do you want to help me? So we have a lot of research showing us that plant-based diets help with stress and anxiety. Just an awful lot of research. Next one. So we have this in our body. We have what's called the gut-brain axis. So guess what? Your intestines and your brain are connected. And they're connected in many ways. They're connected by the vagus nerve that I'll show in a minute. But you have your gut down here, and everybody hear about the gut microbiome? Okay. I think it's so interesting that we're only like, what did I hear, 43% human, and the rest of it is bugs? Yeah, bugs. Yeah, these little microbiomes in our intestine, and about how if you eat the right thing, they produce the short-chain fatty acids and all of this stuff, so, and they make you healthier. So you have to really, really be nice to your bugs. And so down in your stomach down here is actually called the enteric nervous system. It is, it's part of the nervous system. And Charlie said this before, it produces neurotransmitters. A neurotransmitter doesn't go across the blood-brain barrier, but other precursors can. And so it's really, really important. It produces all of these good things. And so, and let's show the next one. This is your vagus nerve, and there's tons of stuff, and there's tons of crap about the vagus nerve on the internet. But this is the 10th cranial nerve, and most of our cranial nerves go to other places in the head. But this big old nerve comes from our brain down both sides of our neck. You can see connections in the lung. You can see the connections in the heart, the liver, the spleen, the stomach, the kidney, the gallbladder, the large intestine, and the small intestine. So the thing about the vagus nerve is it's a two-way street. It has both afferent and efferent impulses, is what they're called. And so here's here's Pam's simple explanation of the vagus nerve. So here's your brain. And you've just eaten French fries and a Big Mac from McDonald's. So there's a little struggle going on down here, right? So the brain is like, oh, wait a minute, what do I have to do now? How are things down there? And your gut says, oh, not so good. And so then the brain says, oh, I guess I better get more stressed, right? Because things aren't good. I'm getting these messages from down here that things aren't good in the body. Now, if you've just had one of my famous green smoothies, and then so you've got spinach and blueberries and what else do I put in there? Weird mushroom powder. You've got all this good stuff in your gut, and oh, I've got a lot of stuff to do today. How are things down there? Oh, they're pretty good. Oh, okay. I guess we'll do okay then. So, and these kind of messages are going on all the time. This is why the plant-based diet and stress, and dealing with stress, is so important. Okay, next one. This is a little bit of what's on your slide. On your handout, I just wanted to give you a more detailed. So we know that a plant-based diet reduces inflammation. And inflammation is related to depression for sure. So we know that does that. The gut-brain axis, so at mood, neurotransmitter production, and immune modulation. And then, I liked this one, the whole food plant-based diet. You get folate, magnesium, omega-3s, B vitamins, and these are really crucial for you to produce these neurotransmitters. So it's so important. I'm a convert. Omega-3s are so important, and I'll talk about that more when I'm talking about my vegan hacks. So what's the next one? Oh, this is Pickles, and this is Pickles sitting. So we've taught Pickles how to sit, and he comes out, and you need a treat because he's a pig, but that's Pickles doing his trick. Okay, next one. Okay, now I'm going to talk about the importance of connection. These goats are the twins, Lennon and Bowie, and that's Pickles in the background, and I think that's Tuve, the other one. We have this thing when I work at the farm that we go out. I do Wednesday mornings, get out there at 9:30, do all the work out there, which in the winter can be quite hard because it's really muddy and awful. And then I take a picture of the crew, and then we give the animals treats. So this is one of our treat things afterwards. Okay, next one. Okay, so I'm talking about three kinds of connection here. Often you'll just hear social connection, but I think it's really important to talk about all three. So connection with others, connection with self, being aware, being mindful, being in your body, being present to this moment, coming closer and closer to your own internal values, and then spirit, some sort of transcendence. And you can call this connection anything, like you can call it God, you can call it nature, you can call it spirit, you can call it, I don't know, anybody else got any other names? Higher power. Yeah, what'd you say? Source, yeah. Mm-hmm. And we use the term sometimes boundlessness. So, okay, next one. Okay, so this is the rabbit effect. So there was a study that was done where they had rabbits, and they were feeding them high cholesterol diets because some people do mean things like that to animals. And they were going to see how much the high cholesterol damaged their blood vessels. Okay, so of course then you got to take the rabbit apart at the end and find out how much it damaged it. And so what they found out, and this was very puzzling to them, it seemed to really affect some of the rabbits, but not the others. They all had high cholesterol, but some of them the blood vessels didn't seem damaged. And they're like, what's this going on here? It's half of them. Why are we getting this big difference? And then they figured out that they had a lab assistant, a very caring and compassionate lab assistant, who was feeding the rabbits. And some of the rabbits were on the top shelf. So she would reach in their cages and she would feed them. But some of them were at this level. And she would reach in and feed them, and then she would pick them up and cuddle them. Those rabbits did not get the damage on their blood vessels. So this, I thought, was just a great study to show this, just having love, just having connection, just having care makes a difference to our physical health. Next one. So social connection, we know this. There's hundreds of studies on social connection that being connected to people, a community, helps you maintain a healthy weight, control blood sugars, improves cancer survival, decreases heart disease deaths, decreases depression, PTSD, and improves overall mental health. When I was working as a therapist, those people who were the most depressed were the most isolated. And again, an unsupervised mind is a dangerous place to be. And I know that myself, being retired now, that sometimes if I'm too isolated, I just need to get out of my own head. And whether that's calling my daughter or calling a friend or going to see Fred, that's something I need to do. So we know social connection works. Next one. Okay, so this is social connection. This is at the farm. This is, that's Eloise, is the sheep. And then that's Fred. And that's what we do. We go and we work hard, and then we have, the other thing about working at the farm is there is this social connection. Reach out, find something that I didn't have in my life. Okay, next one. Okay, so connection with self. Body. I talked about that. Connect with the body. Even if it's just breathing. Maybe it's exercise. Maybe you're a walker. I know at times difficult. There was one particularly difficult time in my life when I got up every morning and I walked about 8 miles. Because it just helped me get through that really, my husband had a stroke, and it really helped me kind of get through that period of time. Or it might be the breath work, it might be simple breath work, or it might be yoga. That again, find a simple kind of a teacher that you like on YouTube, and just do a few gentle stretches, whether it's just sitting in a chair, a good exercise. Okay, so sit up straight in your chairs, and then turn to your right and reach your right hand behind you over the back of the chair. Okay, and pull your left hand. Okay, that's a simple twist. So really straight spine, and then twist over to your right, and let that. So on the inhale, lengthen your spine. Exhale, just twist a little further. Inhale up, just twist a little bit further. Now, while you're in this twisted position, take as deep a breath as you can. Exhale, and then inhale back to center, and go to the other side. Straight spine. Inhale, lift that spine, lift the sternum, lift the crown of the head. Exhale, twist over to now your left. And breathe. Really open that rib cage. Inhale and exhale, and then inhale back to center. You've just done yoga. That didn't hurt, did it? Yeah, okay, good. And then mindfulness. See, it keeps coming back to this. This is why I started with this. You can't talk about these things unless you're talking about being mindful and having self-compassion. Connect with what you truly value. I thought it was sort of weird of me to be volunteering at a farm sanctuary when I was 77. But I did it. And I do lots of weird things too, like I just completed a yoga teacher training. By far the oldest person in the room. I'm 79 now, but by far the oldest person in the room. But nobody, I had this funny thing when I was a kid. I would tell my mother when I did something bad, I would say, but you didn't tell me not to. So nobody told me not to do a yoga teacher training when I was 78. Okay, so that one. And find what you value, even though the world might think it's a bit nuts. And then find this self-compassion, the self-kindness, common humanity. And this really helps us, connect with ourselves. And then when we're connecting with ourselves better, we do connect with the world better. Okay, next. Okay, this is Romeo. Okay. Yeah, he's big. He is the world's tallest steer. And first of all, I'm hugging him, and then he's hugging me. He's one big boy. He's just, the thing about Romeo, and the thing people will say, I never saw one that big. You know why? Because male Holsteins are killed, right? They're taken away from their mothers at birth, and they're put in veal crates. In fact, Romeo and Milo were rescued from veal crates. Veal crates, they take the male babies from their mothers, and they put them in these little houses all by themselves until they can be slaughtered for veal. Yeah, they don't want them to move. They want them to stay once you figure out about the animals, I'm sorry, I think somebody who's an ex-vegan was never a vegan. Because once you start to look at the kind of animal suffering that happens. And so many Holsteins are this big. We just don't see the males. And they're big, and you have to be careful because there's another cow. I don't think I got a picture of Oliver. He's got horns that he put around me and picked me up once. They're big, and they're, I don't know, let's say a couple thousand pounds. So you have to be careful around them. But they're just the sweetest boys you ever saw. And there's nothing like a Romeo hug, except you can see he's almost knocking me over. Okay, next one. So this is connection then with something wider than yourself. So again, whatever you call it, nature, soul, spirit, higher power, and finding meaning and purpose in life. Again, connecting with those values. People who have meaning in their lives live richer, fuller lives. They're less depressed. So I can think of a client who wanted to do something really hard, and she really, really wanted to work for LTD because she thinks public transport's so important, but she was scared to do it. But because that was her value, she thought that was a really important thing to work for. She went and she did it. And then she stopped seeing me because she wasn't depressed anymore. So you got to watch out for that when you're a therapist. Okay, and this was an interesting study that awe, in particular, was the strongest predictor for low levels of pro-inflammatory cytokines. So these are small protein molecules, actually, and they can be pro-inflammatory. Not all of them are, but if you can take an awe walk, like Laura was talking about, that it would be, I want to go out and just see how beautiful the world is today. You know, even when it's rainy and cold, you can do that. I love going for walks. I have waterproof shoes, and I have waterproof pants, and I go out and I get as wet as I can, and just see, you know, the squirrel in the yard, or wow, that's a bush I never saw. Or one thing I really notice a lot of is the clouds are beautiful today. And just as long as you keep to this mindfulness, because often when we walk, you're thinking about, okay, I'm going to go for a walk. Yeah, you're going to listen to a podcast, right? Because you got to get your 30-minute walk in, and you miss it. You miss life. And so, and as I said before, I've said this before, that connecting with the animals has opened this up in me. It was sort of like when I wasn't vegan, when I was still eating cheese and the occasional prime rib. I knew there was something wrong with that. You know, there was a part of me, I would argue that, well, when we're having dairy, we're not killing any animals and that kind of stuff. But we all know this, right? If you put an apple and a rabbit in with a small child, do they eat the rabbit? No. I mean, we know as humans that they're going to eat the apple and pet the rabbit, right? They're not going to never do vice versa, right? And so when I became vegan, it was like something opened up inside of me that had been closed, and I did not even know it had been closed. So that was a real wake-up call for me. And so now I could never be an ex-vegan, could never think about eating an animal. I mean, look at Fred. I'll go onto these cooking shows and they're cooking goat, and I'm like, oh my God, how can you do that? Right? So, and then the animals are just awesome. Okay, what's the next one? I've forgotten. Oh, this is the turkeys. This is Thanksgiving at the farm. At the farm. Yes, we lay out quite a spread for the turkeys. This one down in the lower left is Johnny Rose, and I thought it was the best thing. Johnny Rose wrote an entire bowl of cranberries, and I thought that was the best thing ever. It's like, what? Talk about revenge. And on this one over here is Maura, who's his wife, and then the one behind is Flora, and Flora came from a turkey farm. And so turkeys are built, they're bred to have these big, huge breasts, and sometimes they can't even walk. Flora's lucky. She can walk, but she's one big hunk of a bird. And when I see her on Wednesday, she starts yelling at me right away because she knows I've got the peanuts. And then that's River over on the other side. This is Thanksgiving at the farm, and it's a whole new magical experience. Never miss anything else. Okay, what's the next one? Okay, so this is just, just some ideas, spending time with loved ones. This is just sort of a kind of summary. Can you click on the link there, Ed? See if it'll show my video. Nope, go back. Control, lift it or something? It's not going to work? Darn, I wonder why. Anyway, it's a great video of people hugging animals. So what's the next one? The next one is one of my favorite pictures. This is one of my friends calls this Francis Sinclair. So that's on the left is Charlie, and then there's Romeo and Milo, and down here is Mama, and that's Stevie. Yeah, that's Stevie, Mama and Stevie. Stevie's really he's the sweetest boy ever, but he's got these big old horns that can get in the way. So I just love that picture, and I noticed the clouds. You can just look at the clouds and feel a lot of awe. Okay, what's next? That's it. Okay, so now I have something to share with you. Okay, Scott? People have really helped. Oh, thanks, yeah. It really helps to understand maybe somebody's vegan hacks. I've been vegan for 15, 16 years, and so I have learned a lot, and so I thought I would share it with you today. I also have some treats to share with you, so that I made with my dehydrator. Yeah, okay. So this is kind of how I deal with things. So my first hack is Brooke Goldner. Yeah, I think I have more. Yeah, some of those are the other one, but there ought to be enough. So Brooke Goldner, has anybody heard of Brooke Goldner? She is the world's most positive person, and she has an amazing story where she had lupus, and she had lupus so badly that she had strokes. She had to be on chemotherapy because of kidney failure. This was as a teenager. And then she has this wonderful story about how she went to medical school and she met this guy who wanted to marry her. And she said, well, I'm not going to live a very long life. I'm not expected to live past 50. I can't have kids. And he said, I'd rather spend a short time with you than a long time with someone else. So they got married. And it turned out he was a fitness guy. And he really believed in high protein, but no dairy. She was vegetarian, and she wasn't going to eat meat. So they compromised that she would just eat veggies. All right, and I think she had tofu back then, but I don't think very much. Mainly she just started eating broccoli. She's a broccoli lady, broccoli and all of this stuff because she wanted to get ready for her wedding. And then 3 months later, she goes and have her blood checked, and the doctor said, you don't have lupus. These must be the wrong results. So they went and got it checked again. Her lupus was gone.
So that's right. She wrote a book called Goodbye Lupus. And then she wrote a book called Goodbye Autoimmune Protocol. And the Goodbye Autoimmune Protocol she talks about stress. She talks about gratefulness. But she is somebody to look up on YouTube, just incredibly positive, and lots of good ideas. And I follow her smoothie recipe. So every morning I take my Vitamix and I jam it 3/4 full of spinach or kale or whatever green I have. And my favorite is to add blueberries and flaxseed oil. She's the one where I really discovered how important omega-3s are. And so I'll add 2 or 3 tablespoons of flaxseed oil, or you can add whole or ground flaxseed or chia seeds. I just like the oil because it doesn't get so thick. So, and so then that's my food for most of the day. Yeah, both chia and flax are fairly high. Yeah, I think flax is actually higher, but they're both good. But for me, I don't like the thick and goopy. Yeah, Ed. Oh, you got it. Okay, can you show it? Yeah, it does have audio. No. We'll figure that out. So that's, I just go to YouTube, look her up, or look up her website. She has a Facebook group if you're on Facebook. Yeah. Yeah. Chef AJ has interviews with Brooke. Many people do at this point. Yeah. Oh, there it is. I donated a wheelbarrow to the farm. So that was just showing me. That wasn't the video I thought it was. I'll find that other one. Okay, so that's Brooke Goldner. Look her up. Every Wednesday at 12:30, I think, she does an hour-long question and answer session. And at the beginning of it, she'll talk about what I've been dealing with my patients this week, whether it's self-care or whether it's whatever it is. She'll give a little teaching thing and then she'll answer questions. And I do what she calls hyper-nourishing. That is, I have the smoothies for sure, but then later on, if I'm hungry, and sometimes I'm not hungry, I'll have tofu or something like that. I've gotten pretty good at cooking tofu. So, okay, so that's Brooke Goldner. Look her up. The other is my ring. I put down the Aura ring in case you're technologically and financially prepared for it. It's very, very fun. It gives me, it tells me how much exercise I need to get during the day. It shows I get a score on my sleep. And I'm really upset if I don't get a score of at least 90. And for some reason the other night I woke up and I didn't feel good and I looked, I had a sleep score of 77. I hadn't had enough deep sleep. I hadn't had enough REM sleep. And so I think it's my daughter. She's the technologist and so I follow her along. Okay. And then YouTube. These are some of my favorite YouTubers. This Plant Wise. I was just looking at a video of hers today and she talked about how her husband had a stroke and she went to plant-based and she didn't have any idea what to do. And so she shows what she did. So, and she gives really simple recipes. She's got 6 kids. And so she'll do a pot of red lentil curry, something like that. Really easy recipes that you can freeze a bunch of. The brain docs I really like. These are 2 neurologists who work a lot with Alzheimer and talk about plant-based diet and dementia. Okay, and the books. I read weird books, but I thought I'd put them down. Fiber Fueled. Has anybody read Fiber Fueled? Okay, Will Bolsowitz. He's really interesting. And you can find him a bunch on YouTube. Ultra processed people I really liked, and sugar, salt, and fat. When I was in graduate school, my office mate, who was a bit weird, was a smoker. And she found out that the cigarette companies were adding more nicotine to cigarettes to keep people hooked. And so she said, no. And she quit, just like that. And I did the same thing. The sugar, salt, fat is about 10 or 12 years old. I was already kind of vegan, but I wasn't really a healthy vegan. And then I read how these food companies want to keep us hooked and they want to make these foods really, really addictive. And so I did the same thing. Nope, no more. I'm not going to do it anymore. So I followed my crazy office mate. And then there's a really good book called The Vegan Transformation, which is written by a psychologist. And she talks some of what I'm talking about today, which is this. It doesn't merely transform your health. It transforms how you think about the world, and it transforms your life. So those are just ideas of books that I like to read. The next one are my cooking tools. Please get an Instant Pot. It's really easy. My Instant Pot has a yogurt setting on it. So I make my own soy yogurt all the time, and I'll show you my hack on that. Yes, I'll show you my hack on that. So when you make soy yogurt, it's kind of watery. And so I got this thing. It's got this mesh in. And so you take your yogurt and you put it in there, and then you put the lid on it, you leave it on the fridge for a couple of days, and you have the world's best Greek soy yogurt. That's all it is. And it was a cheap, fairly cheap thing from Amazon. And it's just, if I'm going to have breakfast other than a smoothie, it's Greek yogurt with strawberries and blueberries and walnuts. And this is a wonderful thing. Amazon. I try not to buy from Amazon too much these days, but that's where I got it. Yeah. It's called this Euro Cuisine. It's on here, this Euro Cuisine Greek yogurt maker. And I had tried everything. I tried cheesecloth and everything. None of it worked. Then your Vitamix or some high-speed blender. And then an Excalibur dehydrator. When we go out, if you want some of the treats out there, with my dehydrator today, I made kale chips and flaxseed crackers. Very easy. You take the kale, you cut it up. I put a little dressing on it. I actually put Brooke Goldner's dressing on it. So the dressing on it has a little bit of omega-3 in it and nutritional yeast and stuff like that. Stick it in the dehydrator. The flaxseed, you take it and you soak it, which makes it more digestible because it's not too digestible if it hasn't been soaked. This one I added hemp seeds and pumpkin seeds too. And it turns into this gel, and you spread it out on your dehydrator tray. You can also do it in the oven. I'm just one of those weird raw people. And then let it dehydrate. And they're pretty good crackers. They're a little bit on the salty side, but that's what they are. So you'll be able to try those. And then I gave you some simple recipes that I use. If I'm going to make cheese sauce, I throw some cashews, a cooked potato, and a carrot, nutritional yeast, garlic, and onion powder into the Vitamix, and I've got cheese sauce. And if it's for my my famous tostadas, which is just a tortilla with refried beans and cheese sauce on it. And then I put this cheese sauce, and I'll put avocado, and I'll put my Greek yogurt. That'll be my sour cream, and sliced green onions. That's actually my favorite dinner. And then hummus. Again, I take my chickpeas, I buy them dry, I soak them overnight, I cook them in the Instant Pot for 18 minutes. Add lemon juice, tahini, cumin, something else. Sometimes I add, if I'm doing it for other people, I'll add some sesame oil, makes a nice thing. You could put all kinds of things in it, but in the Vitamix, it just comes out super smooth. And then silken tofu. We talked about this a little bit last week. Silken tofu is the very softest tofu, and it's really good for making creamy sauces. And you can make, just all kinds of stuff with it. Okay, so any questions, any other suggestions? Yeah. Just toss them in a Vitamix, yeah. And I don't pay too much. I'm telling Tamara, I'm not much of a cook. I've never been much of a cook. So I just don't measure stuff very much, and I throw it in there and keep tasting it till it tastes good. I use a fair amount of nutritional yeast to cheesy flavors. Yeah.
What do you use to make the yogurt?
I use Trader Joe's soy milk. And then I go get a non-dairy yogurt starter. Mainly I use my now from the last batch. But I did find, and I don't think it would be too bad if you found non-dairy yogurt starters are hard to find, but, and so I take a mason jar, I put soy milk in it, I add the starter, I stir it up, I put it in my Vitamix, press the yogurt thing for 11 hours, and come back in the morning and it's done.
That might be right now.
In my Instant Pot, sorry, yeah, right. Okay, now my last one I'm really excited about. Anybody here use Chat GPT? Chat GPT? Chat GPT.
AI. It's AI.
Yeah.
It's an AI, it's an artificial intelligence. So if you go and you go to Google and you type in Chat GPT Open AI, you get the official, and it depends on whether you're a Mac or a PC, but it comes up on both. And you get the official Chat GPT website or download the app, and then you begin asking questions. So this is, I just gave you an example at the bottom. I said, I'm a 78-year-old, this was before I turned 79, 78-year-old yoga instructor, and I want a plant-based diet that's gluten-free. And then I just gave you the first 3 days of it, but just to give you an idea of the kind of ideas that it came up with. And then it will say, would you like a printout of this? Would you like recipes? And then you say, yes, I would like recipes of this. And then it will give you that. And so I highly recommend ChatGPT for looking at vegan things, and just say, okay, I'm 50 years old. I want to lose 40 pounds. I'm relatively active. I'm vegan. Give me some, and it'll tell you. And I want to lose 2 pounds a week. And it will tell you how to do it. So, and it'll give you these little printouts and things like that. So, I also had mine do my astrology report the other day. It's because why not, right? And it's free. I mean, you can pay $20 a month, and you can pay $200 a month if you're really using it for fancy stuff. But we're looking up vegan recipes. You can ask it, can you give me a vegan recipe for, I don't know, baked chicken or something? And it might come up with something really. I asked it one time. I logged onto it and it said, "Tell me more about yourself." That's when I knew that I was a 78-year-old yoga instructor, and it said, "Wow." And my friend Greg said, Chat GPT does not care about you. And I said, here's, what do you like to do? And it asked for, what do you like to read? So I put in a few books that I like to read, and he said, would you like me to make suggestions of others? And I don't know whether it's a he or a she, but ChatGPT did. And they were the best book recommendations. And I found them at the library. So it's a very fun thing to play with, just to hear playing around with that. So that's my hacks for tonight. And out on the table, you can open the containers back there, Charlie, if you wanna, on your way out, grab a kale chip or a flax seed afterwards. So that's what I have to offer. Hope that was useful. Oh, I'm also online. I offer individual coaching, or if you have any questions, my emails in the weekly newsletter. I'm at the bottom, of course. So, yeah. I have practiced a little bit of Tai Chi. Yeah.
Do you think you could find a YouTube instructor for
Yes, you could absolutely find a YouTube instructor for Tai Chi or Qigong. Yeah.
Okay.
Want to give us a little preview about next week?
Yeah, it's a preview.
Your cooking demonstration next week.
Okay.
We'll set up in the back there, and
I'm still trying to figure out the menu. So I had an idea of what I was gonna do that's simple and easy: brown rice, beans, toppings. I also could do, or I could do a cauliflower Alfredo pasta, or I could make a cheese sauce. Yeah, I could actually make the cheese sauce and the beans and rice. Does that sound good?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so maybe.
You probably make better cheese sauce than me. I'll be anxious to say.
No, but it does make a large amount, and you can use it so many ways, like you can make mac and cheese with it, put it on potatoes, put it on refried beans. It's really good, really versatile.
Yeah.
I will be out of town, so it's a like phone doesn't miss this one. Can I be out of town with my thing? Can I watch this on phone?
I think Charlie's gonna bring your laptop next week,
Yeah.
And then we can record it on Zoom back there. I don't know how well it'd be able to see. We did that once at the Grange. It was okay. We used it's like a cell phone, but I think if we use the laptop and point it towards her preparing in the kitchen and back in here, then at least, if you're live Zoom, you can do that, but also we record the Zoom classes and they get posted to the website. So you never have to miss a class.
Oh, I do have, most of you, do you already, do you know how to chop and like, yeah, chop things? Like, you don't really need to watch me do that, or does anyone need to do that? Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay, guys.